Hi, I'm Mike,
And I'm Leah.
and this is Let's Talk Outdoors.
Today we are chatting with Claire Miller about Little Red River Park in Prince Albert and Claire's outdoor experiential learning company, Wildernook.
Hey, welcome, Claire. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background and maybe some of your current life?
Sure. Well, I grew up just south of Prince Albert, Saskatchewan on a farm, and I was so fortunate to grow up just sort of in the heart of wetlands with plenty of opportunity to have unstructured play and exploration with, garter snakes, salamanders, freshwater shrimp. So just very, very fortunate childhood for my brothers and I. And I think that developed this close connection to nature that I seem to have wherever I go. And so fast forward a bunch of decades and I find myself in Saskatoon and finding every opportunity I can take to facilitate nature connection for the youth and people of all ages that I work with. I guess I started off teaching in Saskatoon with the EcoQuest program, a grade 8 integrated program. And that was a wonderful opportunity. During mat leave with my son, he's now 6, I decided to start my own business called Wildernook Fresh Air Learning. And I had the question of what would a program like EcoQuest, what would that look like for all ages? What would that look like for grandparents? What would that look like for a baby? What would that look like, for a teenager? And just sort of thinking about all these possibilities that exist. So I sort of see these possibilities everywhere. After my mat leave, I was really fortunate to teach at Sylvia Fedoric School and be the Swale, North East Swale liaison, which took all 400 kids out to learn at the North East Swale, and then had the opportunity to teach in the outdoor school program, which is a grade 11 program based at Marion Graham School, also at Saskatoon Public Schools. You can find me now just focusing primarily on Wildernook and spending time with my family. And Wildernook always has projects sort of on the go. And I think I'll have an opportunity to chat about those later.
You bet.
Claire, are there any sort of pivotal experiences from your childhood or young adult that helped you care so much about outdoor education?
Oh, definitely. I had a challenging time in middle years. We were a bunch of sort of farm and trailer court kids that got bused into the city, and there wasn't many outlets or things for us to do there. And so we had sort of this misplaced energy, and I found myself quite tense and stressed coming home from the school day. And something I discovered was just going in what's now called forest bathing, but going and spending time in the Aspen Bluffs and mucking around on my raft on my parents' what I called a slough, but wetlands. And so that got me through the middle years experience and was absolutely pivotal. And, when you go to high school and you realize your peers aren't doing the same thing, or you go do your graduate studies and realize okay, I was onto something in my youth that I found really near and dear to me. And then now I can research it and try to support others in bringing nature connection and some nature therapy into their own lives. So that one stands out for sure as just something that I did that was completely secret from my family. I'm sure they knew I was doing something out there for hours, but I was really just sort of self-regulating, I guess. And so that was for sure pivotal for me.
That's really neat. And yeah, I find, like you were mentioning, 2 unique programs in Saskatoon here with EcoQuest and Outdoor School. And yeah, I find that since those are unique, and I'm connected to one too, but you do think about all those kids that don't get that kind of connection to the outdoors in that same way and lose out on that opportunity to have that kind of experience that you got to have in your middle years, being outside and have that kind of, regulating thing. But which is why I think it's so cool you started your own business doing this too, to open it up for everybody to be involved in it, and not just a few in the city or in the province too.
Yeah. It was also, just creating a security blanket for myself, because as some folks know, teaching in public schools, you do get moved around, and you don't have control about where you'll be placed. And so this was a bit of security that I could continue to work in my passion place.
So we started, when we were brainstorming having you as a guest on our podcast, we were talking about Little Red River Park in Prince Albert. Mm-hmm. Can you describe that place for our listeners who have never been there?
Sure. Little Red River Park is just an unassuming from the outset park that is filled with biodiverse variety with topographical sort of variety. It is really remarkable. You don't have to go very far in, and it really, I think, should be something that is got some, I don't know, national park status, or I think people are discovering it and they fall in love with it. I grew up skiing and playing on the sandhills and just thinking, maybe everybody grew up with a Little Red nearby them, and just visiting it each year and having conversations, and then being able to facilitate, I guess, 2 experiences now in partnership with Sask Outdoors in the city of Prince Albert, and just spend time with folks coming out from Prince Albert. I guess I'm just over time realizing that there's so much more that we need to learn, and that the general public doesn't know about Little Red. And having traveled more, just realizing that it is on par with a lot of places that we visit in terms of its ecological significance. So there's that coming from my personal perspective, but it is a large tract of land that has sort of an upper plains, a lower plains. It has the Little Red, which is actually the Spruce River flowing through it. And the Spruce River starts in PA National Park at the Haida Lands. And like I was reading about it, and it kind of blew my mind, because you think you know a place and you really don't know a place. But it has a larger watershed than like Anglin Lake, than Christopher, than I'm trying to think what other lake, but it travels through and feeds through these different areas that we're familiar with that are Destination. And yet the Spruce River, while being such a large watershed, isn't on people's mind in the same way. So it's a pretty special place. It eventually feeds into the North Saskatchewan River, and it has been, I guess, diverted and has provided water to different recreational communities for different purposes. And so it's just this river that's familiar, yet has really been altered in many ways. In terms of the site, I think a lot of people from Prince Albert go out to Little Red for campfires, for sliding, for skiing and snowboarding at the little hill there. There's lots of day use in the site. And so in many ways, it's in a lot of people's childhood and family experiences. It's part of that, but maybe people don't or could benefit from learning more about some of the ecological significance of the park. And so it's part of the Nisbet Forest, but it's an island. It's a 1,200 acre island, but similar to the Nisbet Forests that folks ski at for ice trails. It is completely surrounded by agricultural land and by road development, that kind of thing. So it's really, really important to protect and to recognize like where it fits as part of this larger network of the Nisbet Forest.
Neat. So you've been teaching outdoor education in multiple capacities for a while. When you get to one of these locations like a Little Red, what do you look for in a place that you can facilitate outdoor learning, let's say with kids?
Oh, yeah, such a good question. Because and I'm not going to directly answer your question.
Okay.
But But the Little Red falls within the Prince Albert city limits. However, there's very little washroom access in the park besides what's in the Cosmopolitan Lodge. And so that is a bit of a challenge. There are former public washrooms that are not maintained that need to be I think they need to be replaced. And so it's a bit of a limitation to rely on that Cosmopolitan Lodge, which is sort of the restaurant, for the public washroom access, because it's a large park and there's several entrances to it. So if you were to bus there with a group of kids, and certainly I had the opportunity to work with the city of Prince Albert and run a day camp there. And that was one of our things that we really had to navigate, was how are we going to ensure that there is hygienic washing conditions. So, so there is that. And then one thing, is, I guess, scouting the site first is really important. But I really appreciate at the Little Red, there's, the river site, there are a forest site, there's the plains, the upper plains, there's plenty that you can access. And so for a day trip with kids, you could be learning in a lot of different sites without needing to travel a great distance. But it is really important, I think, to just check those sites first and know. And then for myself, especially working with younger kids, I scouted and then put up some boundaries so that if we are near the river, then here's our stop area, and just have that kind of clearly communicated in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Claire, can you tell us a bit about some of the outdoor experiences that you facilitated for people at Little Red?
Sure. So the activities that we did at the day camp, we discovered that there was a really wonderful pond that was, we had never thought to pond dip there. And it was really remarkable, just the range of critters that the kids were dipping from the pond. And I think that, the sandhill is quite the draw, but the pond ended up being this really wonderful hands-on experience where kids who never, associated the Little Red with being a place that had such aquatic variety. So that was a real highlight. We did something that's quite silly as just bring more playfulness during the pandemic to the kids. And that was, we walked along the trail and they had these clues. So they got to a clue box and had to solve a riddle to open the lock. And then they got supplies to decorate a watermelon and name their watermelon. And the kids then hauled their watermelon up to the sandhill. And then they worked together to create a watermelon run to send this watermelon just hurtling down the sandhill. And so that was just a really nice kind of release for everyone. And it doesn't sound ecological at all, but it was an opportunity. It was more on the team building and let's construct something together with loose parts, sand as our loose parts. And that was just full of giggles and an opportunity for us all to play a little bit. And then we talked about how that idea of, should this watermelon get out of control, at least it's biodegradable, that kind of thing, our rationale behind it. But that was a hit as well. That's something that we did with the little kids was thinking about how we could give back to the river. As the river is traveling along and bringing oxygen and nutrients with it to downstream. And so we talked about how you could see a drop in the river and that would be where the oxygen could get in, but that we could contribute adding some nutrients to the river by breaking down leaves. So we took our hole punches and we went up to the leaves and hole punched a bunch of holes to make leaf confetti. And then we somewhat ceremoniously sprinkled all the leaf confetti into the river. And the kids were adorable, and it's micronutrients, but it's partly just practicing that stewardship, right?
And that element of play, like you were saying, I think that's such a cool part of what you do too.
Yeah. So that's there's any number of fun activities very close to the parking lot, but those ones stand out to me for sure.
Thanks for sharing those. I'm sure that I know for me, I got some pretty entertaining visuals in my head of these watermelons and decorating them, and the fun and kind of carefreeness that might come with that, as you mentioned, as we're all dealing with the pandemic still.
Yeah, the city wanted a camp experience, and sometimes you have to think about, well, what's something that we can just create the conditions for and they'll just run with, as opposed to needing more instruction. So that was a really clear winner for us.
Yeah. In previous conversations, Claire, you mentioned that having a conservation designation, like is in place for the North East Swale, could be beneficial for Little Red. Can you tell us more about the North East Swale and it sounds like you've done quite a bit of work there, and how you see the two places being similar or needing the same kind of care?
Sure, I'll do my best. So the Northeast Swale is a really critical wildlife corridor that's running 26 kilometers, and it's an ancient river channel. Now is a ribbon or a series of wetlands that provides really important migration habitat, but also year-round habitat, and it's got sort of complex food webs that are present there. And much of it, I think, about 8 kilometers of it is within the city of Saskatoon. So there's some parallels there. Now, I don't know that Little Red would have maybe the same migratory significance, but it absolutely represents an important ecosystem that I think is I've seen a lot of habitat loss, and it's at sort of it's that boreal in the boreal transition zone, and I think it would similarly act as a wildlife corridor following the Spruce River. So I can see it's this large area that has native prairie. It has some forested areas, and that it is really crucial habitat. So I think preserving it, similar to the Northeast Swale, even though it's within the city limits, and protecting it from development, and even putting some more additional conservation measures on it, so that it's not at risk of I can see that some of the trees are older and have experienced that witch's broom from the spruce budworm, so that probably some sort of maintenance burning could be useful, but I'm not a conservation biologist to speak too in depth on either of those, but there for sure are some parallels, and I think a lot could be learned from what is being done to protect the Northeast Swale, in terms of not just designating it, but I think public education for the city of Prince Albert as well. And I think applying for and getting some funding to support it as well would be really important too.
Very cool. Yeah, I've been to Northeast Swale, but never to Little Red, but I'm really curious now. So Claire, being a mom of a little one, do you find that sometimes your lessons that you would use in Wildernook are from your own experiences being a mom, or vice versa? You have these Wildernook experiences, you're like, I need to do this with my child?
It's so fascinating because every year, maybe even every season, I think it's going to be so great, and I'm going to align my teaching and my parenting. And I've got my son coming to a camp. It's a pop-up nature play day tomorrow. And again, I'm reminded of why that's not as good of an idea as it will be. So, I aspire to have things nicely integrate and align. But the reality is our kids are their own, 100% their own people. And, you know, they're going to take their own route. And if I am seeming keen on something, then they will push, or he will, in this case, push back. So there's the what would be nice, and then there's the reality, which are drastically different. So he's his own soul, and he participates, but sometimes it's more challenging when we're doing the same thing together, as opposed to, I guess, you know, we have so many wonderful experiences playing in forested or wetland areas. And so I guess that's different, but some of the programming I certainly planned with him in mind, thinking this would be awesome. And then I'm just reminded of how I can't have that expectation of him, you know, thriving in what I create. He needs to have his own community too.
As a parent, I can definitely relate to what you just shared, Claire. Let's talk about Wildernook a bit more. A lot of your current programming is centered around getting little ones and youth outdoors in the winter. Why do you see this as being such an important part of your work?
You know, I'm just going to share something that, you know, I was teaching in EcoQuest and I was teaching with Scott Thompson, and we were, you know, exploring and using each other as a sounding board. And something that we came up with is like winter, there's us, there's the land as teacher, but like winter is such a teacher. Really, you learn so much from living and being outdoors in winter. And it's something that I think in Saskatchewan, our narrative is we kind of like brace for it, endure it, leave if we can, and doesn't set us up well to be long standing year-round citizens that thrive in winter. And I think that can start at a young age, and we can play a part at it, you know, looking at the lessons that winter teaches. And so I think that similarly, a lot of books like resource books, they go big in the spring, summer, fall, and maybe could do more with winter. The Below Zero with the Canadian Wildlife Federation that you offer, that training is a great exception to that. But I think we live here, and as outdoor educators and parents and leaders, we could, if we've got the capacity, we could step up to be better leaders and role models in terms of offering programming in winter. So we see it as an opportunity and a challenge to try to go big in what we offer and offer a big invitation and really see the positives in the opportunities that winter brings. So, you know, we've been out, we're in a current cold, I'm doing the air quotes right now, but colder stretch. And we're still running like 2 and 3 hour programs where we're outside for that long stretch, and we're having that dialogue with kids to notice, you know, do they need to generate more heat? How can we generate more heat? Let's work on that together. And so that they're sort of self-monitoring and adjusting their participation accordingly. So it's really important, I think, that we've got that foundation, like so many things, right? In that critical window. Say, like I recently was doing some cross-country ski coaching training, and the experience of being able to slide on ice. That's something that's foundational, and you build on it. But ideally, you'll learn how to slide and then be relaxed enough to slide on ice before age 6. And then you can kind of build on those, and that will help you with skating and skiing. So you see, like trying to teach cross-country skiing to somebody who's an adult who's never been okay with sliding on ice. Well, their muscles are not relaxed at all, and they are resisting. And so, like many things, that exposure at an early age in a positive way, we're not suffering, you're not being tortured here. This is a playful, positive, fun experience. And look, there's these animals that are out here as well. And I think that is a great opportunity, and we'd be doing our kiddos a disservice if we just skipped winter.
One of my favorite things that I see in adults and kids and myself about being outside in winter is resiliency. I just think it's a perfect opportunity to practice that. And like you say, check in with yourself and check in with the other people that you're with. And when you're done, or when I'm done, I often feel that sense of pride or resilience that I did this thing that it's kind of hard, but I figured out how to be able to do it. So it's great that you're offering that to the young ones in your program.
Absolutely. Some of the kids just are so proud that they, have been out when maybe in school it was an indoor recess, and you can tell they've just got this pride about them that they were able to be enjoying themselves outside for a couple hours. So, I think.
Mm-hmm. Where do you kind of see Wildernook going over the long term here? Let's say even like over 5 years, or maybe it's like year by year planning for you, but what kind of vision would you see for it in 5 years?
Yeah, great question. I think that some of the long-term planning has really been tossed, maybe is a strong word, but with the pandemic, it's been trickier to plan. So certainly, we're in the newer stages of the business, and we've been trying to respond to what people are looking for, while also trying to be interdisciplinary. Something that I know is near and dear to my heart is designing solutions. And so looking at, how can we use some design thinking to try and provide, increase nature opportunities. So I can see that trend continuing, but I think in the future, looking to, reach more folks. So whether that is trying to scale, bring on more staff, if that's trying to document and reach out to people through materials. I think some of the things like nature grandparenting have been running for 4 years and multiple seasons. And so we're getting fairly confident with nature grandparenting or nature play care, that there's some next steps that we need to take so that we can share that experience with more people. Significant area of focus is the Punch Buggy Express. And so this is a project that started before the pandemic, and it's a partnership with the city of Saskatoon and Downtown YXB and Tourism Saskatchewan. And so it is something I'm really, really excited about, but it's a children's pedal bus that runs along the river where children cycle between destinations. And so this idea actually came up trying to take kids kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2 to the North East Swale, walk a kilometer, then go for a walk in the swale and then walk back again, and do that in a class period or two. And I just felt the friction of distance. So got onto the idea of children's pedal buses. And now I'm really hooked on children's pedal buses. I've been working on this for a couple of years. So 2022, it's been quite a dealio getting it shipped, but 2022 is the summer of the children's pedal bus in Saskatoon. It is going to be pretty remarkable. There isn't anything like it that I'm aware of in Canada. And so children will have a early exposure and positive experience cycling themselves rather than, hopping in their car, which I think is a bad message to drive, a kilometer to the next place that they're going along the riverbanks. So something that connects this to what we're already doing with Wildernook is that it will be driven by a cycle interpreter who will facilitate some nature connection activities along the way. So we're just sneaking it in there.
That's really neat. And Claire, just to give our listeners an idea of what this looks like, is this kind of like, I've seen them in bigger cities, and I think there's some in Saskatoon now for adults, meant for like 8 people or 10 people or 12 people pedaling all together, moving the same thing. Hey.
Yeah, so they're both quadricycles. The pedal pub, folks it's adult size, but folks are facing inwards to a pub setting. where there's a bartender and they
Right.
have the bar, right? So in this one, the kids are facing forward and there's a steering wheel and there is like the front of the bus and the back of the bus. So it's very much oriented like a school bus. And it's all kid size, so it's smaller, but they're both quadricycles and there's a lot of similarities between the two for sure.
Very cool.
And I hope that we can like wave to each other as we pass each other along the river.
That's such a neat idea. I'm going to look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I cannot wait. It's a great solution, but it has involved a lot of problem solving, just even, running into something like a bollard that is on your route or a narrow hairpin turn or those kind of things, trail developments, then it involves multiple emails and conversations to problem solve around it. Storage. Yeah. There's it's going to be good, but there's been some figuring out in the background.
I bet.
Fun.
We've talked a lot about like youth engagement and getting kids involved. Do you have kind of any programs that are geared specifically for adults? I know you have like ski experiences and stuff. Would that be kind of centered for them?
Yeah. So this year, based on interest, I invented or created a program called Ski Experience that is sort of channeling that idea of like a book club on skis or like tourism skiing with a bit of technique woven in. So we've got a group of wonderful folks that are coming out on Thursday evenings and we'll be skiing at progressively more challenging locations. We'll start off on the flats and the idea is that it's going to address, the need for our to learn. So developing some ski technique to connect with one another. So there'll be like a social component and then to get active and get our body moving and our blood flowing. So hopefully folks will go home with their cups feeling full and learn a little bit about our city while we're out there and just, bring people together when in the evenings when it's dark. Sometimes it doesn't happen unless it's facilitated for you. So that's the idea behind ski experience.
That's neat. Nice.
Not quite rolling off the tongue yet.
It will. Nice having a group to push you doing all those things too, especially on nights you might not feel like getting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm coaching cross-country skiing with the Jackrabbits and yeah, I love it. It's so much fun. So,
I've heard your numbers are through the roof for Jackrabbits, eh?
Yeah, it sure seems like it at drop off. There's a lot of kids with skis, but I don't know. I only know my own group.
Right. Yeah. Fair.
10 kids. So much fun. Yeah.
Claire, I was going to actually ask you too, are you available to be contracted out to schools like a class?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I think that'd be such a neat experience to bring you out with us in various places. And yeah, that'd be great. I'll for sure.
Maybe a Little Red. I mean, I'd go other places.
Yeah, no, for
sure.
And
also the North East Swale.
Yeah, it would be great to piggyback. Like it's such a bus ride for us. It'd be great to piggyback Little Red with like another experience on the way back or on the way up too. So that'd be really neat.
It sounds like you're doing a lot of ski things and that cross-country skiing is a real big passion of yours. Are there any other ski related things that you have on the go that you'd like to share?
Yeah, actually, just having so much fun on skis with kids, we decided to open up Kinder Ski Club, which is a drop-off program for kids to spend more time playing on their skis. Because one thing that we realized is that the winter is actually kind of short when you consider folks leave for the holidays. There might be a few cold weather cancellations, and kids can grow and improve their skills, but they need to be out skiing regularly. So if you miss a few weeks, and if we don't get snowfall very early on. Last year we had an amazing snowfall. This year we were just like hoping for more snow. But it can be a shorter season than we think. We think, oh, we've got this long winter, but it might only be a couple of months. So this Kinder Ski Club is an opportunity for kids to come and play on their skis. And it's a little less lesson and more, we might be playing house on our skis. We might be playing train in the train tracks on our skis. But we'll have kids learning by like responding to the conditions while they're on their skis. So it's very playful, and kids will come away feeling like they are somebody who is comfortable skiing, belongs on their skis, is a skier. So it's a big dose of motivation there. So excited for that one. It is Thursdays in Saskatoon.
Very cool. Claire, I think you're the only person I've ever heard of in Saskatchewan who said our winters are short, which I think speaks to you being excited and getting people excited about being outdoors, which is pretty cool all year round. And one thing I know that's coming up is this lantern walk solstice thing that's happening. Today we're filming this on recording this on the 20th. So this is the 21st. It's coming out. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tomorrow, partnering with the Wonder Hub and leading lantern walks for their audiences. We've got 2 that are going to be going out in the evening, and it's a really neat opportunity to do something to mark solstice and to be, taking the time to for families to spend it together, thinking about maybe what they can bring during this darkest day of the year and what the next few months might look like. So in terms of what we're facilitating, it's a little bit like story followed by opportunity to make your own lantern. Then we take those lanterns outside and we do some outdoor activities. And it's a little bit difficult to describe, but if you've ever gone on a lantern walk before, there's a tradition in like Germany, in Waldorf schools in the Netherlands, of celebrating Martinmas, which is actually often celebrated on November 11th, and that is Remembrance Day here. But it is sort of like the coming of winter and the darker days, and how are we going to shine our brightest light into those darkest days. And so with the groups that I'll be working with, we'll be thinking about how we had the opportunity to charge up our batteries in the summer months and the fall. And now we've got this energy that we can share and shine. And we'll do that through our own creative lantern creations. And then we do some symbolic gestures where we, bring our lanterns together and we sing some intentional songs. And we play with light, and it's just I think a fun community connection opportunity when, otherwise you might go for a walk by yourself or your dog or be at home. So it's quite neat for kids, and they feel like they're part of something too.
Neat.
Yeah, the imagery of the dark night and the lights lighting it up seems like a really powerful one. So I'm sure the people attending will have a wonderful time with you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Let's say someone listens to this a little bit after the solstice. Will this be something that is kind of looked to keep going next year? Perhaps?
I'm so glad you asked that, because we are leading another one with the Wonder Hub on January 13th.
Perfect.
So check it out. There's another opportunity right there.
Will do.
Well, as we start to wrap up, Claire, we have 2 questions that we ask all of our guests, and they're tricky ones. So take your time. The first one is, if you could change one thing about the world, what would it be?
Yeah, I was asked this one recently, and it depends on when you ask me this, but recently my thought was I would change not having boundary or borders. So like political borders, because I think that so many decisions are made, and the way that we relate to land is affected by these political borders and who's allowed in and who's not. And so, yeah, I think that would be one change, and I would remove those political borders.
I think that'd have great consequences to it. It'd be fantastic. One question we always like to ask is, where is your favorite outdoor place to visit in Saskatchewan?
Well, there's a place that I've been visiting since I was a child, and it's at Wyakwin Lake. And so my family has a cabin in Ramsey Bay on Wyakwin Lake, and you can walk across the peninsula on this quad or snowmobile trail and arrive at another bay, and I really like to walk through in the winter and all seasons, and it's just really quiet, and you walk out on the ice and you can see where the ice has shifted and sort of crumpled up onto shore. And there's trees that are often overhanging the lake, and you can kind of climb out on them. So it's a really beautiful place to visit, and a place that's special to me as I've been visiting it my whole life. So I think that's what it would be.
Very cool.
Sounds like a magical place.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
Is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to come on this podcast. I'd like to invite your listeners to take a whole day and go visit Little Red River Park and pack a lunch, or visit. There is a place where you can buy lunch there, but walk the trails and get further into the park, get past the picnic tables, get past the sandhill, and really just spend the day. I think it's important that is a place that people in Saskatchewan get to know and get to appreciate and start to advocate for. I'd also like to invite folks to just keep a lookout for the Punch Buggy Express in the summer months, and hopefully you can check us out. We're going to be launching our website in the new year. It's punchbuggyexpress.com, but I think your listeners would find it a lot of fun and kind of a neat, sustainable transportation solution for kids too.
Great. We will definitely include that website. And you've talked a lot about Wildernook. Can you tell our listeners how people can connect with Wildernook?
Sure. We've got a website at wildernook.com, and we are on social media at Wildernook. And we love to collaborate and develop and design solutions. So if your organization has an idea, chances are we've got some ideas that we'd like to help you implement. So don't hold off on getting in touch.
Well, Claire, thanks so much for joining us today. And yeah, we hope that we'll get the chance to visit with you again in the future. And we certainly look forward to taking part in more of your programs and joining up with you again.
I hope so too. Thanks so much for the chat.
Leah, what is your takeaway from this conversation with Claire?
Well, as you pointed out during our conversation, she is the first person that I've heard say that Saskatchewan winters are short. So I think I'm going to be mulling that over for a while. And as someone who has kids who participate in a biathlon program, we are really experiencing that with waiting for the snow to come and then wondering how long it's going to stay. So I think my takeaway is that I need to enjoy winter while it's here, even if it's cold, and that there are lots of fun things to do outside and to get some inspiration from some of the ideas that Claire mentioned.
Absolutely. I think for me, since I'm still learning more about winter education, I'm going to be looking to utilize Claire maybe on a couple trips with my school, and looking through ways to get her contractor out there with my class for sure. And I got to make it out to Little Red. I think it's embarrassing to sometimes be like, oh, I've never heard of this. I've never been out there before. And we live in Saskatchewan. I got to go see some of these places. So I'm grateful that it was brought up in this show.
This podcast is produced in association with Sask Outdoors. Check us out online at saskoutdoors.org.